Beginnings, Volume 22, page number 68, My Heart's Desire, written by Desiree Gomez from the Aspire Greater Cleveland program. I selected Desiree's writing, published because it speaks to a tragic loss and the courage to proceed. My Heart's Desire. It was once said that there are two tragedies in life. One is to gain your heart's desire, and the other is to lose it. On an ordinary day, like so many others that blurred together like Groundhog Days, I met the love of my life. I had never believed in love at first sight until I laid my eyes on Rodney. He frightened me a bit at first, with his wild energy and animal magnetism. I swore I could feel it radiating off his body, as if it were going to crack the shell of my contented, if somewhat boring life. I think it was the way he so openly and hungrily looked at me, oblivious, it seemed, of everyone else in the room. I sat there for a moment, quivering slightly, and as he watched me, I could feel my face start to burn. Finally, I laughed helplessly. I knew he was the one, and I sent up a quick prayer that God would make him mine. I couldn't seem to stop staring. I was mesmerized by this beautiful man. His face was baby smooth, cupid bow red lips, brilliant smile, and crystal sea blue eyes. When he flashed me that crooked little half smile, I was for sure a goner. All it took was one kiss, and we were madly in love. For the next 5 years, we were deliriously happy and almost inseparable. Halloween night was damp and chilly. After partying with some friends for the holiday, I grew tired and went upstairs to sleep, leaving Rodney and a few of our friends in the kitchen. I figured I'd wake up when he crawled into bed, so when I woke up in the middle of the night, alone, I was surprised, but still didn't think to worry. I padded down the stairs in search of him. The house was silent and empty. Upon entering the living room, I could see Rodney's still form on the couch, sleeping peacefully. I tried to wake him to come to bed with me. He wouldn't move. I tried again, shaking him harder. With growing horror, I realized he was completely unresponsive to my touch. In a panic, I dialed 911. He was still warm, so I tried to breathe life back into him. Again, again, again. By the time the EMTs arrived, I was a mess. At the hospital, I waited for someone to tell me something. I began to pray, begging and bargaining with God. I would do anything as long as he would be okay. Rivers of tears streamed as the minutes ticked by like hours. Finally, a doctor appeared and informed me that the man who had captured my entire soul with one smile hadn't made it. He had overdosed on heroin. It felt like I was plunged underwater. I struggled to breathe, shocked and sickened to the core to hear those words so coldly spoken, as if she weren't speaking of a man who had been my world, that had meant everything to me, the man who had promised never to leave me. I wanted to scream at her. Instead, I just stared straight ahead, speechless, tears running down my face. She looked at me, sympathetic, and then whispered, "Come with me." She led me to the back room. It felt sterile, empty, dead. The glaring lights above the table made it look as if he lay floodlit on a stage for no one but me to see. I couldn't bring myself to keep my eyes on him. I wanted to look anywhere but at him. When I eventually found the courage to look at his face, everything around us faded away, and it was just us. I stood there silently, staring down at the only man that I had ever truly loved. All I could think was, this can't be real. I can't say how long I stood there trying to grasp the reality that the man who had held me all those nights, laughed with me, danced with me, teased and kissed me so gently, who could ignite my flesh with a touch, take my breath away with his look, or stop my heart with his laugh. He was gone. The body on the table under the lights was just a shell. The best part of him had left. To a place where I could only hope that he would be waiting for me someday. His eyes, once crystal clear and blue, were now glassy, milky, and unrecognizable. Why hadn't they closed his eyes, or wiped away the brown leftover mess from the Narcan? How could I be here all alone, the only one knowing he was no longer on this earth? I held his face in my hands. Leaning over, I touched my forehead to his, as I had done so many times before, and gave him one last, long and lingering kiss. In that moment, I believed his death was my punishment for some yet unknown sin. I gathered myself and rose slowly. Then, with one last longing look back, I gathered the strength to walk out of the hospital and away from the love of my life. Outside, the sky was gray and bleak. I sat in my car and smoked a cigarette. I had to be strong now. I had to go home. Home, where I would have to face everyone alone and tell them he was gone. Home, where his clothes hung in the closet and his razor and toothbrush lay on the sink. Last night's towel still hung damp and smelling of him. Home, where his boots and lunchbox still sat by the front door as if everything were normal, and he might enter any moment, voice booming, laughing, that contagious laugh. Home, where his pillow still held the indentation of his head, where everywhere I looked, everywhere, everything would remind me of him, because it was our home, had been our home. I threw my cigarette butt out the window, unclenched my fist, dried my eyes, and put the car in drive. I left him there, on the table, open eyes under the lights, all alone. Once home, I could only lay on our bed and draw myself into a tight ball. I thought I would scream and sob out my grief, but I did not. I only lay there still, my face pressed into his pillow, taking small, quick breaths. I shook my head back and forth, whispering, "No, no, no." I couldn't seem to banish the image of him laying there cold and still. I felt as if I would see it forever, as if it was burned into my brain. I will have to die, I thought. Surely I can't live like this. This can't be what I think of when I think of him, because of course I would think of him every day. And then the tears came, torrents of them, harsh, hoarse sobs torn from deep in my belly, weeping like vomiting, a hole in my heart that will always remain. I wonder how a human being could have so many tears. I finally cried myself to sleep, thankful for its dark relief. When I awoke, there were tears still wet and clinging to my swollen cheeks. My eyes were puffy and tender. My body felt like I had thrown up my whole being. What replaced it was cold and echoing pain. I thought to myself that surely I must die of such pain, even though I knew that was impossible. Maybe I wished it. I do know I wished that God had taken me instead. I became a lost soul. Life had lost all purpose for me and all of its magic. A great heaviness set in that nothing could penetrate. It was as if I had been given a bubble to wear, like I had been placed in a snow globe. No one could reach me. This would be the first of my mornings that I would wake up without him by my side. I stared into the gloom of the bedroom. I thought maybe if I got up and opened the window and curtains and got some fresh air, that day might even seem somewhat ordinary. But I didn't move, not for a long time, because I knew deep down there would be no more ordinary days. Because how would any mundane task ever seem ordinary again? He was so kind and generous with a big heart. He had a way of making everyone, especially me, feel comfortable in their own skin. His personality shined through the ordinary, making it wonderful, until it seemed like there was nothing ordinary about him, about us, at all. After him, ordinary seemed pointless, dead. What could there be for me after him? There were times after his death when emptiness howled. His death put me down a crazy path, thick with unexpected and unimaginable until I couldn't even begin to see beyond my next step. Where it led me was here, far from home, to this classroom. I am a prisoner sharing my story with you, trying to find a way to cope with the pain, the loss that led me into a downward spiral that landed me in a place that I thought would be the end of my life. But I found here that just like Rodney, I am strong and can endure. I will make it. I am much like a phoenix, rising from the ashes to be born again. Again, I hold my head high. I know he's looking down at me, not unlike a guardian angel. So I step up to every challenge. I'll never be the carefree girl I once was, but I'll never forget her, nor will I ever forget this man, for he was my heart's desire. Desiree Gomez.